Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the West Coast Offensive. It has been a while since we've had a normal or typical episode. The past couple weeks have been fun with life on all that good stuff. Some good, some annoying, but it's all good. We are back, ready to pump out some more content for you in the sports realm. Now, the show is going to look a little different. Our forever guest, Drew Agers, taking a step back as the summer ramps up for his own professional career there. That makes it sound a lot better than he might think it is, but hey, good for him, right? So he's going to be coming on and off as topics peak interest as he has bring us more of an expert analysis on certain topics. So for the time being, it'll be myself, Kyle, giving you the show, bringing those news stories and catching you up on all the sports content that we cover here on the West Coast Offensive. And we'll bring guests on as time justifies. A lot is in the works right now, so not a lot to share right now, but a lot is in the works on how that's going to work out. But we should still have weekly episodes coming out to you, so we appreciate the support and the patience, and excited to talk some sports. So let's get to it with this episode. This episode, we are going to be covering a lot. We're going to recap some of the Eastern Conference games and our picks. Same with the Western Conference for the NBA as the playoffs are in full swing right now. We're in the second round. Most of the games are 2 or maybe 3 games in right now. We'll cover all of that. Then we'll look at the NFL and cover the Julio Jones trade and what that means for both Atlanta and Tennessee and everyone else. But we'll get into all that when we come back from our break. Welcome back, everybody. The NBA playoffs are in full swing, and let's start recapping it. So Drew has picked our games for the Eastern Conference playoff preview. We had our picks. Drew had Milwaukee making it to the Eastern Conference Finals, and I had the Suns on the Western side. But let's recap the Eastern Conference games so far. We had Philadelphia up against 8 Washington. Philadelphia won that easy, 4-1. There's nothing really much to say about that. Kind of knew it. It was a fun series. Westbrook did some good stuff. I'm excited to see what Washington can do this offseason to run it back, let's see if they can push farther behind Westbrook. Great season by him. Great season. Then we had 4 and 5 seeds, the Knicks and the Atlanta Hawks. Man, this series was phenomenal. Trae Young became a villain, and he lived into it. Just being booed at Madison Square Garden and egging the crowd on. Man, what a player, right? Atlanta's got a star there. Atlanta won that series 4-1. That series felt a lot closer than it was, though. It was cool to see the Knicks back in the playoffs and just kind of see that franchise fan base be so excited about being in the playoffs. Madison Square Garden was rocking during that season, and like I said, Trae Young, star, right? Absolutely phenomenal, and he played that role perfectly of a villain. He loved it. Great series, but Atlanta moves on 4-1, which is what we had as well. So far, I will say, I forgot to say this at the top, but for both the Eastern Conference and the Western Conference, we were arguably perfect in our picks, minus some stuff in the Western, which I'll explain. But so far, we're pretty much on track with our picks so far, which is fun. But back to it. So Atlanta moves on. Last week's both 4-1. The Eastern Conference really swept not these other teams. So we had Philadelphia and Atlanta now in the second rounds. The series tied 1-1. This is going to be a fun one. Drew had Philadelphia moving on, and ultimately, yeah, I can see that happening. But if Trae Young can keep it going, I think there's no reason Atlanta can't move on. So this is the exciting series to watch. Both games have been fun so far. I'm excited for game 3 and to see where that series ends up. But going back to the first round with our other 4 teams, we had Milwaukee sweep the Heat. The Heat is just not, they're on that. This is another topic, I think, is talking about these bubble teams, because both the Lakers and the Heat are out in the first round. Both of those were in the championship. They played the longest in the bubble. They had the least amount of time of rest before the new season started, and they're out in round 1. So that's a topic to talk about and see what that actually means. But Miami got swept. They're out. Milwaukee moves on, and then Brooklyn and the Celtics played. Brooklyn again won 4-1. And just kind of rolled over Brooklyn there. And now we have Milwaukee and Brooklyn in the second round. And right now, Brooklyn leads it 2-1. The first two games in Brooklyn were not good for Milwaukee. Milwaukee did not look great. It was not the series we all expected, I think. But in game three, they came back on home court. They kind of took that back. James Harden's injured, injured in the first game. That didn't stop Brooklyn, and I had Brooklyn being the favorites to go to the finals. Drew had Milwaukee, so we'll see where this series is. But right now, I think I see Philadelphia moving on. Would love Atlanta to move on and get an Atlanta Brooklyn game. That's kind of my pick right now, seeing how it is. But we'll see. So that is how the Eastern Conference has shooken up so far. Great games so far. Excited to see those two. But now let's look at the Western Conference. Now let's look at the Western Conference. Now this is where I argue that we have a perfect pick so far because I think it's Denver and Clippers flip spots in seeding. So it switched up the matchups. I think we had Denver and I think we had Phoenix. Yeah, we had Phoenix and Clippers and Utah and Denver in the second round. It's Utah and Clippers and Denver and Phoenix. So you flip those two around, there it is. But let's recap the games before we get into that. That's all humble jumble, which might not even make sense. Number one, Utah went up against Memphis. Utah won 4-1. Memphis made it fun, but ultimately Memphis is a few pieces away from really making a push deep into the playoffs. But Ja Morant is a phenomenal player. Hope they can build around him and keep him going up. But Utah moves on. Then we had the Clippers against Dallas, and man, did the Mavericks look like they were going to take it. Luka. Let's just go with Luka. It looked like this series was lost to the Clippers. Luka looked like he was going to take over this series and win it. But LA Clippers, they fought back and won Game 7 to win the series 4-3. Kind of shocking me. Leonard really came out and performed very well towards the ends and really stole this series away for the Mavericks. So, hey, you love to see it. It's a different team. Different Clippers team than we saw last season, right? Who kind of looked like they all gave up. So, hey, good for them. I don't see how long they'll last in the playoffs. So against Utah, right now, Utah leads 2-0 in the second round right now, and it's Utah and LA going up against each other. Now, let's move on. We have Denver up against Portland. Denver won 4-2. Denver just wore out this Portland team. Again, it's the defense of the Portland team. They are one-dimensional sometimes. If you slow Dame down, it's not hard to stop the other players. If you stop the other players, Dame has to do it all alone. It's a lot harder. So the biggest thing coming out of this series is Blazers then fired Terry Stotts, head coach, and now seemingly Dame is there, but he also released this cryptic tweet that said, how long does loyalty when does loyalty start to pay off? Like should I stay, basically? So a lot of theories about Dame wanting out of Portland. I really think it's going to come down to the coach. Reports are that he wanted Jason Kidd. Jason Kidd took himself out of the running, so we'll see. It's a tricky situation in Portland. I think you want to keep Dame, but if he asks to be traded, I think the city and the team has to let him go. I think it's similar to Julio Jones at this point. Like, look, you did what you could. you brought us some fun times, some good games. Dame, exciting basketball he's brought to that city. But if he wants out, I think the team is going to let him out. So that's the only way I think he's traded is if he asks for it. But that's something to watch into the offseason as the playoffs continue and eventually end is what happens with Dame Lillard, because that could shake up a lot of things depending on if he did end up moving or who they bring in to help solidify that Portland team. But anyways, Denver wins that and moves on. And then we had Phoenix beating the Lakers, the 7th seed Lakers 4-2. Devin Booker. This Phoenix looks great. I picked Phoenix to go to the finals, and I was a little like, I don't know, maybe I'm going to pick them. I just feel like it. No, I should have just been all in because, man, they are performing well. They are performing in a way that this is their series, right? This is their year. They're playing to win this year, and it's exciting. So we have Denver now going up against Phoenix in the second round, and right now Phoenix leads 2-0. They lead 2-0, and they've won those games pretty handedly. So they look good. And, I had Phoenix. I picked Phoenix and Utah moving on. And I think I'm still going to have Phoenix moving on to the finals as what we're seeing as the way Phoenix is playing with Devin Booker. it's just good, right? It's just good. So I'm gonna keep my bet behind Phoenix there to get through to Utah and make it to the finals to go up against Brooklyn. That's the one part I differed from Drew. Drew had Milwaukee going through, and it's like I had Brooklyn, and I still do, even though they let go game 3 over to Milwaukee. That's okay. I still have Brooklyn winning this series, and we'll have Phoenix and Brooklyn going head to head in the finals to decide it. And what's really exciting about this playoffs is the remaining teams. They haven't won the championship either. Most teams never have won it, or it's been like 1978, I think, is the most recent time. I forget who it is. I should have had that information. I might interject it in real quick right now. And I found that information. So this was posted by ESPN Stats and Info on June 7th. So a couple days ago from when I'm recording. But the last time the 76ers have won was 1983. Bucks was 1971. Atlanta Hawks were 1958. And the rest, the Clippers, Jazz, Nets, Nuggets, and Suns have never won a title. So that's really cool because it's just, we're getting new blood into these playoffs. And, remember last decade where it's either been Steph or LeBron in those finals, depending on what team LeBron was on. But the finals have either had Steph or had LeBron or both for the longest time. So it's cool that, potentially will, and I think I have the Suns winning it. So that'd be the first time they win a final. So that's really cool. So that's something I really like about these playoffs is these teams are playing a little differently. They all in right now. They got to win it for the franchise. It's been years for all of them, or they've never done it. And I mean, the powerhouses aren't in it. Everyone had the Lakers at the beginning of the season. We had a video, one of our episodes, we talked about how the Lakers are pretty much the favorites when the season started, and they're out in round 1, and they didn't look good. They never looked good, in my opinion. So that is exciting. I'm excited to see how these games shake out. Especially, man, if Atlanta can win over Philly and continue on, I think it's a fun series. I don't know how well they would do against Milwaukee or Brooklyn, but that's either here nor there. But that is going to conclude our first segment. When we come back, we'll talk about the NFL and talk about Julio Jones. And welcome back. Well, this week, June 1st was the date for a lot of things. Aaron Rodgers potentially being traded, Julio Jones potentially being traded. It just was less money on the books if they wait until June 1st for both those players. Rodgers is still a Packer. It seems the Packers front office is not going to not going to let Rodgers go. So we'll see what that is. That's a whole other thing there. But Julio Jones did indeed get traded. He kind of hinted and asked for a trade. He didn't really want to be there. Atlanta grants him that, so to speak, and he is now traded to the Tennessee Titans, which was a kind of surprise. Earlier or sometime last week before the trade went down, it came out that Julio was looking for or wanted a quarterback with a deep arm, big arm, accurate, big time quarterback player, right? That got me excited because to me, I was like, oh, you want a quarterback with a good arm and can throw a ball deep? That's Derek Carr, right? A lot of times, people might say, no, that's not Derek Carr. Look at the stats. Okay, calm down. He has one of the best deep passing averages ever, or not ever, but in the league right now. So he can throw a deep ball. The offense isn't designed. If it's not there, he's not going to throw it. It's not like he doesn't force things. That's another conversation. But that made me kind of okay. Right now, the asking price seemed to be a second rounder and a player or another late round pick. That wasn't too much to me to give up for Julio Jones. Obviously, it didn't work out. So he's not on our Raiders. He actually ended up going to Tennessee, which is a fit that makes sense. Yes. That's kind of how I feel about it. Julio Jones, let's talk about the trade and then we'll talk about what it means. So Atlanta sent over Julio Jones and a 2023 6th rounder, and Tennessee then Atlanta sent over that. Nope. Yes. I wrote this in a weird way. Atlanta sent over Julio Jones and a 2023 6th rounder, and Tennessee sent over a 2022 2nd round and a 2023 4th round. So a 2nd and a 4th for Julio Jones, and they got a 6th in return. To me, man, Tennessee, congratulations. What a trade, right? If Julio Jones is just a solid receiver, minimum, which he will be. There's no reason he wouldn't be, honestly, especially with that offense with AJ Brown too. It's going to give both of them more looks, right? They're going to pull. They're gonna pull. They're gonna pull that coverage one way or the other. It's gonna free up that other person. Speaking also, yeah, Derrick Henry in the backfield. So, congratulations to Tennessee. Like I said, I think this is a great move for them, especially as a team that has been knocking the door, has been getting into the playoffs, but just hasn't been able to sustain deep stretches into the playoffs. They come up short every time. So, I think for Tennessee, this is a win now mode. You gotta try to win now. You got 1 to 2 more years with contracts, I believe. I don't know where Tannehill's contract is, but at some point, if you're getting into the playoffs every year, you gotta make it. You gotta make progress, right? You can't just keep getting in and getting out right away. So, this is great for the Titans. I'd be stoked if I was Tennessee, especially just hearing how Julio is talking. He didn't. AJ offered his number 11 up for Julio because that's his number. He said, "No, I'll just be number 2. That's fine." He's like, "I'm not worried about how many stats I get, how many catches I get. It's all about the team." Like, that's awesome to hear that should be awesome to hear if you're a Tennessee Titans fan. This guy isn't going to come in and try to be a star and demand everything. No, he's going to do what the team needs. And I think that's what Tennessee needs. So I expect Tennessee to be a better team now because of this. That's exciting. It's fun. Good value. You didn't really give up much. I think I would take Julio Jones over a second-round receiver. So I think that works out. So good trade for them. Now looking at Atlanta though, they get a 6-rounder. Sorry, they get a 2nd-rounder and a 4th-rounder back, which that's good draft capital, I guess. It's a tricky situation, right? For them, I think they could have got more, but the market didn't dictate that. I think Julio is worth a 1st-round pick, but that's not what the market is right now for them. You wouldn't give a 1st-round pick up for a receiver, which, hey, it's value for teams, but I think Atlanta is on the short end of this trade. But what are you going to do? I said in the offseason or at the end of the season, I wanted them to clean house. I think they need to move on from Matt Ryan. They're going to keep him for a year. That's fine. Money-wise, that makes sense, but it's starting to rebuild. This is what it is. It's starting to rebuild now, but it's trying to remain competitive enough to potentially win, because right now you got Tampa Bay, who basically is the same team as last year. We'll see how that works out for them. Obviously they probably got better within the draft, and I don't think they signed anyone crazy in free agency. It's mostly just their own players they brought back. But you got them. You got the Saints, who have a question mark right now based on quarterback play. We really don't know what a sustained Saints offense is when you have Taysom Hill as your starting quarterback, or if you have Winston as your quarterback. What does that look like for New Orleans? So there's a question mark there. And then Carolina is also up and coming. So I don't know, if I'm Atlanta, I'm reading writing on the wall, remain competitive, but you got to catch up. It's an old team. Atlanta feels old, and I think it's purely because of Matt Ryan. But I don't know. Just the last couple of years, they've been disappointing. They've been getting stats, they've been getting numbers, they've been getting touchdowns and scoring, but they haven't done anything. They collapse. So that is, I don't know, just seems like an old team. And maybe that makes sense, maybe it doesn't. But like I said, beginning of the year or after the season ended, rebuild, trade both of them. They traded one, and I'm happy for them. So it'll be interesting to see what happens in Atlanta. Overall, I think they're on the short end of this trade, but I think they got the most they were going to get. I don't think they were going to get more from a team, especially a team that Julio wanted to go to. And I think that was something. I don't know if they had to consider that. I don't know if he had a trade clause or anything, but I do know that they were trying to treat him well. It seemed like they were working together on this. It wasn't a, well, we're getting rid of you because you don't want to be here. It was, yeah, let's get you out. Thank you for what you've done. So we'll see. Like I said, like what Atlanta's doing, I think they're the winners of this trade easily. I think Derrick Henry's going to benefit from that. AJ Brown's going to benefit from that, just from learning and just having someone else to pull coverage. So I am much more excited to watch and follow the Titans this year. than I was previous years, even though they've been a good playoff team the past couple of years. I'm more excited to see what this offense could be with Julio Jones. It should be at least, like I said, he should at least be a very solid receiver in this offense, and he probably will be a little better than that, right? So exciting things down in Tennessee. That is our second segment talking about Julio Jones being traded to the Tennessee Titans. When we come back, I'm going to talk about some hockey real quick. All right, and welcome back. Now, harken back a couple years ago when Vegas was seemingly in a weird decision getting a expansion hockey team in the Las Vegas Golden Knights, brand new hockey team. Cool. I wasn't following hockey, but that idea interests me. The fact that Vegas has sports. I always thought that was cool. I grew up in Southern California. We went to Vegas every now and then for like spring break, stayed, at the fun hotels and did the childlike stuff that Vegas does have around there, outlets and that stuff. So I know Vegas, and I always thought that was really cool for it to be for sports to be there. Like, oh, that could work really well. It'd be cool. So when they announced Vegas was getting a expansion hockey team a couple years ago, I was like, all right, maybe I'll start paying attention to hockey. Lived in a place where I couldn't really reliably watch hockey games, and even now I think it's a struggle to watch hockey games. It's not as easy to find, especially during the regular season. During playoffs, though, that's what I've been doing, and they are thick into the playoffs right now. Anyways, Vegas, that first season, that inaugural season, they went deep into the play. They went to the Stanley Cup Finals as an expansion team. They didn't win it, but I followed that run, and now fell off of it. But I am back into hockey, trying to learn it. I don't know anything about it. I don't know what an offsides is. I'm playing hockey on my Xbox, and I keep getting penalties where I go offsides, and I don't understand it. And I could look it up. But don't yell at me. But I could look it up. But I haven't. Anyways, I'm still learning the game, but it's just so exciting. It's so much fun. I just want to talk about the Las Vegas Knights right now. The Las Vegas Golden Knights, excuse me. And this is more of a fan right now because I'm not going to offer expert analysis. I think Marc-Andre Fleury is doing great as their goalie, and that team has rallied really. They were down 2-0 to Colorado after going 7 games in the first round. Then they went 4 straight and clinched the series, and now they're in the semifinals. So I just think it's exciting. Hockey is super dope. And again, this is just a pure fan thing, but as I learned more and more about hockey, it's a really fun little sport there. So I'm pulling for the Golden Knights right now to pull it out and keep going on. But I don't even know what my intention is here. I think I just wanted to talk about some hockey real quick and just saying I am truly enjoying watching these games, especially going back and forth between the NBA, watching these games, which have been heated and competitive, to say the least, even though a lot of the games have been a little lopsided in some cases, but the personalities and the competitiveness is there in those games. And in hockey, it's the same thing. Like, these games are tough. Like, the energy is there in these games, and that's really exciting in playoffs and in general. So, yeah, just, keep an eye on the Vegas Knights, baby, as they continue to push forward. Starting to look at more Vegas teams in general, especially since they might be getting a baseball team eventually. Oakland A's looking for a new stadium. That's another topic on another day. But Vegas, you know what? Vegas is a sports city, and maybe that's what I'm getting at. Is these home games for the Vegas Knights are tremendously intense. It's packed. Vegas is completely open, so their stadium's full. Their arena's full right now, and it is rocking. You forget that's something that's been missing from sports is a full packed arena, and now because Nevada is Nevada, Vegas is completely open. These games have 100% capacity. They are rocking, and that's something we've been missing from sports. But overall, Vegas is a sports city. It's going to keep building. That's something to even dive into in another episode, as I just randomly decided to talk about hockey from a fan, just being really into it and wanting to learn more. But if you want, hey, watch some hockey. It's exciting. It's confusing, but it's also very straightforward at the end of the day, especially if you look up what offsides is. It wouldn't bother you. Anyways, that's going to end another episode of the West Coast Offensive. We are in a interesting state right now with the show. As I said before, Drew is going to take some time away to not work on himself. I don't know why I was saying that. But that is going to end another episode of the West Coast Offensive. We're in an interesting spot right now with the show. There's a lot of different things going on, trying to figure out a format, especially being some episodes will just be myself, other ones will require guests. Finishing up school right now, so there's a lot going on, but the show will continue on and figure out a more proper flow to it in the coming. Hopefully by next week I'll have more of an idea. But I do want to thank you guys for listening to the episode, and we'll keep bringing it out as it comes out. But, let me do my spiel. You can follow us on your preferred podcast listening service, such as Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcast, or our host, Anchor.fm. You can also find us on a multitude of other services by just searching for the West Coast Offensive and following and liking that show with that bear logo. I need a name for it. We'll figure it out. Anyways, if you want to stay up to date on content we are releasing, you can follow us on our Facebook page, The West Coast Offensive. Again, find that logo. You can find us on Instagram at The West Coast Offensive and on Twitter at The West Co Offensive. That's at The West Co Offensive. Couldn't have too long of a handle. Also, be sure to follow us on our YouTube at The West Coast Offensive, our YouTube channel there. Be sure to subscribe and click that notification bell to never miss out on content and clips as those come out during the week. We'll be getting a little more consistent with that in the coming weeks, so keep an eye out there. Last but not least, if you would like to support the show, you could do so at Buy Me a Coffee. So that's buymeacoffee.com/the West Coast Off, OFF, the West Coast Off. You can head over there and support the show financially. Now, this show is done out of passion and a desire just to talk sports and to do all that stuff. But financial help does indeed help the show increase production value and all that stuff. So if you do wish to do that, you can head over there at buymeacoffee/the West Coast Off. Anything is appreciated and nothing is needed. But again, if you want to support the show and help us expand, increase our production value and all that stuff, you can head over there, or just simply, buy me a coffee, because that's what's really cool about this site is that Buy Me a Coffee is simple. You know what? You just want to buy me a coffee? Go for it. Just shoot over a couple bucks to buy me a coffee. It's all you have to do to support the show. It's super appreciated. And yeah, it's a really cool thing. So check out buymeacoffee/the West Coast Off to support the show if you so wish. So like I've said multiple times, we'll be back. I'll be back next week with another episode, hopefully earlier in the week. I know we pushed it back to Friday, and this might actually also be, we'll see. I'm going to get this out Friday night, hopefully. So when you're hearing this, it's probably Saturday by now. I'm going to try to get the show out a little earlier, looking more towards Tuesday or Wednesday, actually Wednesday or Thursday. So keep an eye out for that. We'll get back on a consistent schedule there as life got crazy, and then it's coming back now. It's calming down a little bit. So that'll be fun to get back into that. Keep an eye on that. And until then, be kind to others. Stay safe. See you next time.